This episode of the Turf District podcast is brought to you by Park Power, your friendly locals utility provider. In Alberta, you get to choose who you buy your internet, electricity, and natural gas from. Park Power has low overhead, which in turn allows them to offer low competitive rates. Reach out for a no-obligation comparison by emailing estimates at parkpower.ca. If you decide to switch, it's easy. It's really just a change to your billing, and you can feel good knowing you are helping to give back to our communities with your utility bills. Learn more at parkpower.ca. Enjoy the show. It's time to huddle up. It's the Turf District Podcast. Welcome back to the Turf District, where we huddle up to talk all things Edmonton Elks and the CFL. And we are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. And we are also a part of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. I'm Andrew, and welcome back. It has been a while. It is the Season 8 premiere of the Turf District podcast. It's crazy to think that it's Season 8 and you guys are still somehow tuning in. The regular crew is here tonight, starting with going out west to the one and only super fan, Mike.
See, I'm in mid-season form. Look at that.
Are those free agent jazz hands?
I think they are. Well, this one is. This one's still locked in.
That was still.
Yeah.
You only have one free agent jazz hand.
That's right. The other one was, signed for a 2-year deal. So it's good.
Oh, okay, great. Did it get like $400,000 for just the way that it does that spin? Or?
It got signed by free Chris Jones, so I think unfortunately that got a little less. So.
Oh, okay. Well, the left one's up for a big raise. That's what I hear.
That's right.
Yeah, it's perfect. Boy, we're kind of getting into some topics already, aren't we? Okay. Next on the list. Chat going. That's right. Is coming from just south of us. It is Commissioner Kayla.
Who? Who is it?
There we go.
Nice break.
Yeah,
it's a surprise.
Yeah, I know.
Surprise.
Well,
you want to leave with anticipation.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Always leave him wanting more, Kayla. Always leave him.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
I just never leave. Never mind. I'm not even going to go there.
Oh my.
Just never stay long enough to be missed. I'm gone.
Let's get the three of us on the screen here so that we can talk together. Guys, how has it been? We've been off for a month. How you been? How was the holiday? How's the new year? How's everything going? Don't everybody talk at once.
Yeah.
No.
Who? Which one?
It's only a podcast. Like, who cares?
It's not mid-season form now. No, it's been good. Been sort of champing at the bit to get back to it. There's been a bit of news, so kind of nice to be able to talk to someone that isn't just tapping away on the phones for frantically while your Twitter feed blows up. But yeah, it's been a few changes. Looking forward to talking about it. Just a couple.
Yeah, just a couple. Kayla, how's your new year? How are things?
I don't know what changes you're talking about because I'm just always off in the metaverse somewhere.
I know we're a bit late though, but happy birthday, Kayla.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
exciting.
It's always great to have Christmas and then my birthday after that, and taking some time like off social media and just relaxing and not taking life too seriously.
That's a good gift.
Well, you know what? It's an easy gift to achieve if you just put your phone down and don't go on social media.
Yes, that's very true. Except, of course, to watch the show.
Yeah. Like, literally, I've just been binge watching The Office again, and I'm just like, this is a good life.
That's a good thing to do. Yeah. I've been binging all things Star Wars between Mandalorian and Boba Fett.
Which is the same thing now, so that's good.
I know, which is great. I love it.
No spoilers from last week. I haven't watched that episode yet.
Okay.
Well, 2 weeks ago, though.
I'll be quiet. Yeah.
Well, 2 weeks on Wednesday.
Yes.
That's when they really... Yeah, anyway.
It'll be all good. It's lovely. Now, new this year, before we get too far, for those people who are joining us on YouTube, we are going to do the show in its entirety. We're going to try and get better at getting that right into about an hour, and that'll be the audio version that goes out. And then we're going to have overtime afterwards where we do a little bit more chatting with you guys and answer some more questions and things like that. So keep the chat coming. We will mention it a bit in the middle there, but we're going to go through that on overtime on YouTube, because that was a new thing that we wanted to try out so we could get a bit more interaction. Now, a few things, like you said, have happened since we last recorded. So let's get into it right away, because, oh my goodness, we've got a ton of stuff. I want to start right at the top. New president and CEO, Victor Bui, joins in. What a hire. I mean, I cannot be more excited about this. I don't know about you guys, but I am fired up about Victor being here.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely. I mean, at the time, we didn't really know a ton about him, those of us that weren't following his MMA company. But the energy he's brought to the position and the team and the city itself has just been infectious at the least. At all. Anyway, it's just one of those things that every time he posts, I just look forward to seeing it, because it's just, I can't believe this is the guy in charge of the ship, because he's been fantastic so far. And people might mention, that there have been no missteps so far, and I don't know if we're going to see any in this near future. So hopefully his social media game's outstanding. Let's see if he can do all the other things to start getting people back to the stadium and watching some Elks football.
Yeah,
I love the fact that he's ready to say, like, what did we do wrong and what can we do better? And he's listening. You see him responding to fan tweets, and I'm just like, you're the president. like. Wow.
Instantly too.
Like crazy. It's so awesome. And you're right. His enthusiasm is infectious. And I can't wait to hear more from this guy. And okay, so to me, and I don't know how important this was to you guys, but he's from Edmonton. Like he watched games as a kid, which is like when I was a kid, because he's about the same age as me. And it's to know that you have that history already, and now you're leading the ship. I love it.
I didn't know anything about him, to be quite frank. I knew nothing, and I haven't even heard the name when we were talking about possible presidents. I could be wrong. I don't recall his name ever being mentioned. So it was kind of nice to start with a blank slate, at least for me. And I mean, I don't know still how it's going to go, but the one thing that I can say is I posted it on my Facebook is that video of him looking at the wall of honor in the locker room. That got me, because that's exactly how I feel when I walked in. Like for the first time, I just gazed there, and then when Andrew and I had the opportunity to shoot the commercial, I went back there again, and I just stood there and like looked at it in awe. And to see him approach it in the same way, I was like, this guy's for real. This guy appreciates and understands the importance of the history, but also moving forward with the team and reaching out to fans, which is unheard of, I think, at least in the last few presidents. Really, and quick, and like people with not much of a following too, because I feel like a lot of times you'll respond depending on how big the following is of that certain person. But for him, I see him responding to everybody.
Yes.
And I thought that was quite remarkable and very humbling. And I really appreciate that in a person. So I am now officially on board after that video, and then kind of just sitting back and observing him. I'm on board. You got me, Vic. I'm there.
Nice. Were you going to say something else earlier there, Mike?
A couple of things. Coach Vic has a great point that it's nice to have another Victor around. Well, at least he's not biased. But you'll always be, Coach Vic to us, though. So
correct.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
It's interesting that he apparently applied previously when Chris Presson was hired as president. I'm not sure what the reason was they went a different direction, but now that he's been here, everyone is starting to ask, why? Why did it take this long for us to get him? I think he really understands, having built a company where it was just him into a $1 billion company over in Asia. He really kind of gets that. And the fact that he wanted to be home before he got this job, that just speaks volumes to him and his character.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I am a big fan of this hire, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do over the coming months for sure. Now, we did also get a brand new head coach and GM, and now we talked about this on our last show because about not even 24 hours later, it was announced that Chris Jones is the new GM, head coach, and as it turns out, defensive coordinator. Not terribly surprising there, I guess. But your initial reactions on this, Kayla, let me start with you this time.
Oh, honestly, that was my initial reaction. I'm like, I'm not surprised in the least, but I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess. I mean, at this point, all I want is good things, so I'll try to remain positive about it. And I mean, we all know what kind of coach he is, to actually, well, I shouldn't say that anymore because our defense is kind of, a little different than it has looked. So I can't say that. But in saying that, we know that he can build a really great defense. So I'm looking forward to having hopefully another, bone session. That is sad. That came out wrong. You know what I mean?
Title of the podcast. Okay.
You know what I mean? If you're an old S fan, you know. Yeah, sorry.
Oh wow, that didn't take long to get right at. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you for tuning
tired,
in.
Whiskey,
Right.
no filter. Here it comes.
That was outstanding.
Cool.
Maybe we should switch to Mike. No.
Yeah. I'm cautiously optimistic. That's where I'll end it. Move on.
Mike, do you want another bone? Wait. This has gone off the rails completely.
Oh my goodness! What a start! I can't wait to look at the chat.
Yep.
I think that we were still smarting from the Chris Jones 1 reign.
Yep.
But one thing you can't say is
that's so funny. Oh my goodness. Sorry.
We need to go back to the switch the video feeds off for a moment.
Yeah, probably. Okay, go ahead.
All I see is that phone session. So, this is going to be a good one. But because even though when he left, and then when he left Saskatchewan, he ended up leaving with a lot of the pieces in place that they were able to go still further. You look at that first season after he left, it was all right. The season after that, we did very well in 2017.
Yes.
Saskatchewan, same kind of thing. He left. Craig Dickinson took over, and it still was going fairly strongly. So I think that's even if he isn't, as he is saying, here for the long term, I think we'll leave this in a good place. And with having the next hire, which I believe we'll probably talk about, in place, I think that at least all the pieces are going to be there. So I'm looking forward to a great pace at training camp. I loved the pace he had. And who doesn't love his defenses besides the opposition, right? Because it's just one of those things that has hits that'll break you out of your seat. Interceptions, maybe a pick six, dare I hope. Ooh. And, who knows? We had a pretty good special teams on when he was here, so we can't get Craig Dickinson, but we'll see who he brings in as a special teams coordinator, and maybe we'll have something that isn't just catch the ball and fall down. So I am, like Kayla says, cautiously optimistic. Not necessarily for another bone session, but at very least for some real positives going into the season.
Oh, my. Okay, I thank you for controlling and being able to get that all out, Mike. I think I've recovered now, but that was very funny. That was one of those times, where you're not supposed to laugh and you just makes it even funnier and you can't help yourself. That was what was happening there. I agree with you, Mike. The one thing I will say is that people want to play for Chris Jones. Like, players want to play for him. And to me, that's a big part of, let's give him a shot. He's saying the right things. He wants to be there for the long haul. We hope that is the case. The players are all excited to be here. He brings in talent. We know he's very good at bringing in talent. And we've talked about this for a long time, Mike. We need to see those guys that are outplaying their contract. And 100%. So he may be able to find some of those guys. Like, you go back to John Ojo and they came in and all of a sudden they're tearing things up. So He knows how to make those guys better. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. And I will give him credit in the fact that he has done already like 2 or 3 interviews, granted from wherever he is down south, but he is a lot more open to talking about what's going on. And he did the fan, Q&A as well. And I was actually really impressed with that. So,
more engaged. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a little more engagement there for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Now, then you just talked about the other hire. We'll throw that in there, that hired as assistant GM, G. Roy Simon, which is great because we know that he can talk to the public as well. He is a great face. He's a known face. He's a a loved player from the league. And if for some reason, Chris Jones does have another opportunity, then I'm fairly comfortable that G. Roy can be learning at this time and then be able to take that over if we need to. So that's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about our coaching staff because they did bring in the rest of the coaching staff. This is over a couple of different announcements, but McAdoo returns as the OC, which I know is, I don't know, I think there's some mixed emotion there. But Mike, you were saying the last time that, the last couple of times that he's had some offenses, they've had some big quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the quarterbacks that McAdoo has had, and I mean, Mike Riley, you can say it's hard to not do well with Mike Riley, but BC found that isn't necessarily the truth. And even us in 2013, we had Riley before we had McAdoo, and we went from a 4-14 team to a 12-6 team in one season from switching to that. I mean, a lot of it was because our defense played so much better as well, but it wasn't like we were winning games 1-0. Like we were still scoring some points. So, we haven't really seen what Arbuckle can do in this kind of situation. He did play in a McAdoo offense earlier, along with Jarius Jackson in Toronto. But, he beat Winnipeg, who is the current Grey Cup champion. So there's certainly some cohesion there. So we will see if that is the quarterback we have going into the regular season or not. I'm hopeful that we get a chance to see him. It would have been nice last year, but for whatever reason we did not. But I think that if that's the way we're going to go with some of the receivers that we're going to talk about going into it, I think, we've still got some pretty strong possibilities of doing well under this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's run down the rest of the coaches here, and then we can catch Kayla's reaction on those. So Jarius Jackson in as the quarterback and pass game coordinator. Marcus Howell in as the receivers and run game coordinator. Anthony Vitale, is that how you say it? Vitale?
Yep.
I think so.
Anthony. Yep.
Is on the offensive line. D-Max comes back on the defensive line, which is very exciting for us on a number of levels because, we love D-Max. Who doesn't love D-Max?
Mm-hmm.
So his line loves him. So
yeah, absolutely. Cam Robinson stays on as the linebackers coach, who knew Chris Jones from before. Brandon Isaac joining in as the defensive back, a name for fans of the CFL would know him for sure. And then Tyrone Robinson is the strength and conditioning coach. The only one that we don't know yet is special teams coordinator. And so I'm curious to know when we will find when that name will come out. And of course, as you said, Mike,
probably tomorrow.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah. Like 9 a.m. right before free agency starts because we're having the show tonight. But because that's the part that, we know needs some improvement. So, Kayla, anything on any of those coaches that jumps out at you that you're like, this is good, bad, or otherwise?
I mean, I am strictly biased that I am you've already said it, very excited that Maxie stayed on. So there's a little bit of consistency in some names that I will, recognize, but there's a huge shift in the coaching. But again, if you're going to blow something up, just blow it up completely and hope that the pieces start to fall together. So, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. I can't find anything that I really disapprove of. I mean, losing people, it's sad. Mm-hmm. But I want this to work out. But again, I'm most interested in the special teams right now because that is the one area where, we all agree on that. But it just my rage last year was just immense. So I'll refrain my opinion to see what comes of that.
It's lovely to have this actually a video podcast. Well done, Kayla. Mike, anybody on there that jumps out at you?
I was glad to see Cam Robinson at linebacker. I thought we had, considering we had 3 new faces in the linebacking core last year, I thought it did a lot better than I was expecting with 2 raw rookies in there. There were certainly some times where they did get burned, especially at that sort of Will and Mac position. But I still thought it wasn't certainly the worst part of our team. And if he can do that with these rookies, let's see what happens when we've got guys that are experienced. Even the people like Niles Morgan and Keyshawn Vieira, who now have a full year experience under their belt, going into the second training camp as well. So I was really glad to see that, along with, as you said, Demetrius Maxey. That front 7 now has the same coach that it did in 2021. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, especially under a very aggressive Chris Jones defense.
Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree. All right. Well, shortly after that, we said we wanted roster changes. Well, boy, did we get them. So
careful what you wish for.
Sometimes, right? So the first trim happened before the end of December. Now there's 11 players, but it did include some names that we knew. Martin Bittard is the long snapper. Chris Kasher out of the defensive line. Derek Dennis finally gets his release from the Elks. So he's, was excited about that. Armonte Edwards, Ernest Edwards, Sir V, Jonathan Rose, James Tuck, and Scary Terry Williams, all, being in that first round of releases. Mike, anybody in there that really kind of totally surprised you?
A couple of people surprised me. I thought Ernest Edwards is a bit of a surprise in that I thought he would be probably a fairly cheap guy. He had some good games, especially that Labor Day game at receiver. Maybe not as great at special teams, but nobody seemed to have a great returner, including Terry Williams there. James Tuck at first, I was a little surprised because I thought he was so strong on that special teams play especially. But the more I looked at it, the more I realized he only had 4 tackles. Maybe go back and look at that film, and maybe he's not doing as well as he had in 2019, 2018. Jonathan Rose came in with a lot of fanfare. And,
absolutely.
Maybe he didn't play as well as he would have liked for his contract.
Yeah.
So especially when he had someone like Nafis Lyon coming in.
Absolutely. That's fair. Kamish, anybody else on there for you?
No one.
No.
I'm not shocked. No.
Okay. I think the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is the trade, I think that one you might have something to say about there, Kayla, because Mike Moore going off to the Owls in exchange for Tony Washington and Martese Jackson. Both of those guys making their return to the Elks because they had both been here. Of course, Tony Washington was last here in 2016, I believe. Mike, yes? Okay. And of course, friend of the show. So I was very happy to see Tony coming back. We, obviously have chatted a number of times with Tony, and so I was happy with that. But, obviously hard to see Mike Moore go, but if you want good people coming in, you got to trade some good people out. So, but I knew that one would be tough for you, Kamish.
Yeah, just on an emotional level, obviously you get attached to some of these players. And I mean, I think even since I started the podcast, I was always a huge fan of Mike Moore. So to see him go, I mean, honestly, when I saw his name go up, I kind of figured that Kwaku wouldn't be coming back. Okay. I don't that's my personal opinion.
Spoilers.
Sorry. I predicted, I don't know if I'm right, but that was my prediction. But yeah, it's sad, but I mean, he's going to the Owls, so it could be much, much worse. So it's not too bad of a cut for me. Because as we all know, I'm kind of a groupie when it comes to the Owls. But it's nice to have some familiar faces come back, especially Tony Washington, who is definitely more of a vet for the Elks. I'm hoping that he brings some leadership to that front too. So,
yeah, 100% agree.
Hoping. Yeah.
What do you think of it, Superfan?
Yeah, I think Chris Jones' defense, he is a genius at creating these defenses, and he has the type of player that he wants in every position on the field of those 12 players. So if Mike Moore was not going to fit in that position, then it's at least something that we could use to get some strength there in Tony Washington, who, as Kayla says, has got that experience and can be a leader on the offensive line. And then Martese Jackson, I think he's had success certainly in Toronto, maybe not as much here, but again, with a different approach to how we're doing special teams, maybe he can regain that. He's a small, slippery kind of guy who tends to do well on special teams, on returns. So kind of hopeful that it's going to do it. And it gives a chance for Mike Moore to get reunited with his defensive line mates in Nick Usher and Almondo Sewell.
Yeah, that's man. Montreal got a good mix there. That's going to be interesting.
Dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, then we do have a retirement to talk about, and I guess from each of us to talk our thank you to Matt O'Donnell.
Absolutely.
10 years in the green and gold.
Amazing.
And he was a leader. He was a quiet giant, right? He wasn't a super talkative guy, but man, oh man. And I know this was all over Twitter when he retired, but no one will forget that hit after the interception. And,
Diamond Ferry.
Yep. And no one, and for me, I always have this picture of Matt O'Donnell, and I don't have the picture myself, but there is a picture out there with him basically with one defensive lineman in each arm holding them back.
Cross.
I mean, the guy's a monster, and he was great in the community, and we're going to miss him. So thanks for all you did, Maddie, and happy retirement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the one thing I liked about Matt O'Donnell was not even what he did on the field. Well, I guess on the field, not in the field of play, is that after every game prior to COVID, when you could get your kids on the field, he was the first player out and the last player to leave. So He made sure that those kids, if they wanted anything from him, to whether it was to throw them a ball or to pick them up and throw them 8 feet in the air, he was willing to do it and happy to do it. And it just seemed to really love that time with the kids. Of course, he's a parent himself. So it's just, that's the kind of person we want to be an Elk, because it just represents our city in this league better than anything I can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that the only women's dinner that I actually got to go to, he was there. And you walk into the locker room, and I couldn't see anything else because all I saw was a sea of women and then Matt O'Donnell just sticking out. That's all I just remember him just like way above everybody else, but he was just like this calm and cool and collected. Like you wouldn't expect someone so massive to be so gentle and like on your level, but so high above. It was such an ironic moment for me, but that's how I remember him, as just, again, like you said, a gentle giant.
Reminds me of a previous offensive line we used to have. We'll talk about him later.
Yes, we will. Okay, sounds good. So thank you, Maddie, for everything you did. Now let's get back to more on the roster, because a lot of other things happen. These are not all going to be in order. I'm just going to kind of go with a few things, and we're just going to highlight some of the names. Released was Chris Nelson off the defensive line, Jonathan Mincy, which that one was a bit of a surprise for me. I'm not sure about you guys, but I thought he did perform pretty well last year. Although I know, like you said, there's Lions, and we know that Chris Jones finds guys to play corner, so it should
likes those 6'4" corners.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. Which he is not. Hugh O'Neill as well. Being released, was punted for us for I'm not sure exactly how many seasons, because there was a missed one in the middle there, I think.
He wasn't here in 2015 when we won the Grey Cup. That was Grant Shaw. Right,
but Edmonton kid, was great on punting, but I have a feeling that we're going for a combined kicker punter this year. That's my guess. Maybe.
Yeah, possibly.
Possibly. Now extended. Let's talk about extensions. They started with Danny Vandervoort coming back on the wide receiver position. I'll just list these all off really quickly, and then we can run through them. Josh Woodman, defensive back, of course. David Foucault, who we had signed, and then is that right? We had signed and extended. Is that what? Or he was? I don't remember. I maybe put him in the wrong list. He might have been in the signings and not in the extensions.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Came from BC.
Correct. Yes. Or wasn't it Montreal? I thought he was in...
Right.
Right. He was BC, Montreal, now here. Okay. Maxime Royer. I have a really hard time with that. Yeah.
Global player.
Correct. Jordan Hoover is a defensive back, so the flow comes back. That's exciting.
Sick flow.
Exactly. Tavon Smith as a wide receiver. Mike Jones.
Who?
Thank you. Back as wide receiver. James Wilder Jr. coming back at the running back position. Eric Blake as the defensive back. Antonio Simmons on the defensive line. And Darrell Walker as a wide receiver. So... There's a few of them to talk about in there. Superfan, you start this time, and then we'll go to the commish.
I liked seeing Mike Jones coming back.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. Just for that reason. No,
me too.
I thought that he, when he was playing, he did get injured in there. I thought he was a really solid third receiver, fourth receiver in there, and as a Canadian, doing quite well, especially when Tavon wasn't necessarily doing as well as projected. He was one of the top 10 highest paid receivers in the league, regardless of birth certificate. And I think he might have been the highest paid Canadian, and not doing what we kind of expected him to do. And Mike Jones, I thought, picked up that slack really well. James Wilder Jr. was a bit of a surprise. I thought he was going to be done with everything else, but from everything that was been told, he has already had his first vaccination. He's going to be getting his second, and that means he'll be able to come back to the country and travel and play. And if so, I mean, you can't really argue with the success he had on the field. So the energy he brought to the team and everything else, he was a really nice guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He was all good to the fans. That's the important part.
Yeah, he was very good to the fans.
Absolutely.
Don't steal my line. I actually have a question. I don't really understand what the extensions, like how they're relevant in compared to signings. Like, does that mean then when camps come that they actually can not make it? Like, I really don't understand the process of extensions versus signings.
Okay, so extensions they were already under contract with you, and then you extended the contract so they don't become a free agent, right? Whereas otherwise they would have become free agents, and then we would have to sign them. I thought James Wilder... They're basically re-signings, but there's some though that what'll happen is maybe they have a 2-year contract. They're in between year 1 and 2, and they could extend it to a 2-year again, so then it would be like maybe a 3-year contract. So that type of thing is what can happen. Okay,
totally get that. I just thought James Wilder Jr. only had like that 1-year contract, and it was up.
Yeah, so he would have been a free agent here starting tomorrow, but then we extended or re-signed him, same kind of thing really at this point, to come back for another year.
Okay, because I saw some extensions that were like to January 20th, 2022. And I'm like, that's past though. I don't get it.
It might have just been the date of when they extended it.
Maybe. Yeah. That's the only thing that's plausible. Cause I'm just like, I don't know all that much when it comes to like the actual contracts and like salary caps and everything. I just know football. That's what I know.
It's fair.
Anyway.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm very surprised, honestly, with Darrell Walker, and I don't know how I feel. I love Darrell Walker, but his passion and his enthusiasm, like there was nothing. It was just like watching a void person play a game, not even right. So that it got me thinking, like, what was really happening with him in the locker room? Because if they were willing to extend him, I don't know. It just seems very odd to me from someone who didn't produce at all to get an extension.
Right.
It was
as
per
much.
cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry?
Less money.
It was less
Well,
money. Yeah. Which is
Fair.
which it needed to be based on performance and all those
But isn't
types
it
of things.
still quite substantial?
Oh yeah, it's not small.
Yeah. I'm just that shocked me because I was talking to one of my friends and there was two names were like Ellingson and Walker. I'm like, I don't expect that at all. So, well, serves me right for assuming.
Yeah. Well, and Darrell had his first success under Chris Jones, right? So maybe there is a different mindset with the different coaching, right? And
Let's hope.
and he knows the playbook differently. So maybe that makes a difference. We shall see. I sure hope so.
Me too.
I want to see 2015, 2016 Darrell Walker. And,
Me too.
And less 2021 Darrell Walker. So
Bring back the D-Walk.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Now let's go to some signings because there's some interesting ones here before we move on to horde items. So we talked about David Foucault, Mike Dubisson coming back after not playing for 3 years
Or 4.
4 maybe. Wow, that was a big one. And bringing in a kicker in Greg Hutchins. So that's the start of things that might be to come. We don't know.
Bringing back. He was here a couple of years ago in training camp.
Yeah, absolutely. Then some other highlights here. We did get a few quarterbacks, including Kai Loxley, who has an amazing name. And I feel like we are going right back into Arthurian times. So Sir Loxley, I wish you luck. It'll be amazing. Now he's also 6'4" and he can play receiver. So now that we can only dress, 2 quarterbacks on the roster, maybe
for now,
something there, right? We also signed Canadian Nicholas Sumach, offensive lineman, who, in Chris Jones's own words, he's a big fella. And
he's a draft pick.
Yeah, and he said, I got a picture of him the other day, and he made Tony Washington look small. So 6'8", 335. That guy is an interesting addition onto the O-line. Khalil Tate was another quarterback that we signed. I put this name in here again because it's a cool name. Kingsley Opera on the defensive line.
Yes, sir.
Who doesn't want Kingsley to make the team? That's amazing.
The Kingsman.
Yeah, Kingsley and Loxley?
Oh.
Tell ya. Do we have jousting at halftime? That'd be amazing.
That'd be awesome.
Now, here's some surprises. Darius Bowman back at wide receiver. Emmanuel Arsenault joining the team at wide receiver. Caleb Hawley joining at wide receiver.
I feel like I got younger.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. Matthew Elam on defensive back. Daniel Ross is back with the team on the defensive line. Yeah. And then a big, or what I'm being told by a number of people that know and people who are in the game, signing quarterback JT Barrett could be a really big deal. He was with the Buckeyes for 3 years with almost 10,000 yards in passing and 104 TDs.
Not bad.
Not shabby. So
some records are set in there too.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think those are both records, and I think he has records for completions as well. So be a guy to watch. I need a new backup quarterback to fawn over, so we might as well have him come in. Anyway.
There.
Then we had Tyrell Robinson, one of them. I think Tyrell is the one that we actually ended up signing. Perfect.
Yeah, we signed both.
Then
we kept Tyrell.
Okay, perfect.
They are twins.
Yes, and then there are some reported ones. I think we'll wait for those when we talk about free agency. Tell me with that list, Superfan, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, like you, I heard a lot of hype about JT Barrett at quarterback. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, he did not stick in the United States, but that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. Ricky Ray didn't stick in the United States, and he did all right in the CFL. So if it's someone that we can put into that third position, we don't know if the CFL is going to allow us to have 3 quarterbacks in the roster again for 2022. Hopefully they have seen the error of that way and they will bring them back. I mean, I could see he's a big athletic guy, so maybe he could be in that sort of third string quarterback on special teams or something, right? So,
Right.
And I think if he's going to hold a clipboard for a bit, I think this is a good time with someone like Jarius Jackson at coaching. I think he can learn a lot. And who knows, maybe in a year or 2 or 3, he could be, the next Mike Riley or the next Ricky Ray, or who knows. We will see.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Kamish, how did you feel with, AD coming back into the fold?
I am totally for bringing back some vets and then bringing in some rookies. Like, I think on this team right now, it's really important to have leadership, and it's something that was very much lacking. So if we can find some leadership in these vets for some rookies to train under and to actually instill another reputation of a 2015, former S, now Elks team, I'm for that. Like, I don't really care how old you are. I care if you can play. And if you bring that passion back and then someone can learn off of you and be successful, that's what I care about. So just prove me right, and I'm on your side. So I'm hyped. I'm looking forward to this. I actually really appreciate knowing some of these names. Like Manny and AD. I appreciate it. Manny, I know you. I appreciate it.
And, it's a well-known fact now that Brian Kelly did move back into town, so maybe he'll be on the field. You don't know.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. Well, we need a kicker, so, Sean Fleming's around, right?
He's got to be.
Just bring him.
Can't be president, but you can kick.
That's right.
So.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
cheer.
We'll love it.
Our cheer team needs some new guys, too.
There you go. He's a high kicker.
There you go. It's perfect. Oh, my. All right, Superfan. Do you have a couple of questions that we should go over before we jump to Horde and Tell?
Oh, let's just zoom back here. We have a lot of people.
Okay, well, we'll cover that in
fantastic.
overtime for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of people talking about things that we haven't quite broached yet for free agency, so maybe some of this should stick till after free agency. I'm just going to scan ahead a little bit. This is all about stuff we're going to be talking about. People do love the concept of the bone session, so that's great. Chris Agar does suggest that maybe we're back in junior high. I suggested that we never left.
True.
Although he does ask if the turf district has an HR department.
Nope.
Just as a lot of people are not so sold on Mr. McAdoo coming back and coaching those offenses, though Chris Agar does say, I'll take a McAdoo boredom that wins over last season any day. They suggest that perhaps Ken Ludwig says that 2021 is now known as the season that did not happen, which goes along very nicely with the postseason that didn't happen in 1989, so that's nice.
Perfect. Yep.
I think 2012 could also be under that category of seasons that did not happen. 2013. Yeah. What are you going to do? Ken Ludwig says that Matt O'Donnell's decision surprised him. He thought he had a couple more years left in him. And I think with some of the people that are coming in, David Foucault, I think, is another guy that's going to crack that lineup. He's being paid starter money from what I hear. So I think that it was getting to the point where he was going to have to either take a bit of a pay cut or, certainly not guaranteed his position as great as he was. And, he's got a young family. I think this is maybe he had an opportunity that's like, okay, because apparently he's known for a month and a half, like in early December, mid-December, that he was not coming back this year. So I think that, he had made that decision and it would take a lot to make him change that mind. So.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Paul Reckner does say that earlier in his career, after having paid off his student loan, I remember Matt making a $10,000 donation to the Stollery well before becoming a family man. And he says, I would wear his jersey for decades to come, whether he's playing or not.
Oh,
Amazing.
wow. That's awesome. That's fantastic. That's really, really good. All right. Well, we'll leave more of the YouTube chat to overtime, but let's get to some Horde and Tell. Superfan Mike, what do you have to wow us with this week?
No. So I recently picked up something. So there is a company out of the States that makes retro jerseys. They're called Royal Retros. I think they were called 503 Sports before, or they might still be. And this line is Royal Retros. And part of the problem with doing retro jerseys of CFL is you have to have a license, unless it doesn't have a logo or a word mark on there or mentioning these team names, right? If it doesn't have the CFL logo, if it doesn't have the team name or their team logos, you can certainly do that. So one thing they did have, and I got made up, finally, been waiting a while for this. Speaking of...
Oh, Charlie Turner.
So this is a 1970s style jersey. It has the 2 white stripes and the 2 yellow stripes on the sleeve.
Nice.
That changed to those 3 white stripes. And yeah, so these are actually sewn on, tackle twill sewn on numbers and name marks. And yeah, absolutely gorgeous. Takes about 6 weeks to get. And I'd ordered this sometime in November, and I got it just after the new year. So finally,
oh,
I have a little something to wear.
You know what? I need to get one of those with a 27 on it for us.
Yeah, he didn't start until the 80s, so he didn't wear that style of jersey. So
that's okay. We could make one kind of reasonably close. Like, I mean,
exactly. And to make this a little more authentic, I do like that 70s look. I also picked up one of these to put on to the sleeve.
Nice.
So.
That's awesome.
1977, we wore those on the sleeve in anticipation of the 78 Commonwealth Games. So yeah, if you come to the games, you can find me around wearing that for the entire season, I'm sure.
Oh man, that is so awesome. That is so awesome.
Yeah, so,
very cool, man. I'm happy that you have that.
Yeah, just to sort of show, this is what an actual one from that era would have looked like. Of course, it's got the longer sleeves. This is a replica as well, but it's the crested on, it's the ironed-on graphics versus the tackle twill. So this would have been an Ed Jones replica.
Nice.
But I do love that sort of. Little closer on the sleeves, but still looks pretty good for that retro being made today. So anyone is interested, I'll be tweeting out the link to Royal Retros along with some of these pictures if people are interested. And yeah, you can get one yourself.
Awesome. Cool, man. That's outstanding. Let's talk free agency. I hear that opens tomorrow, although we've been talking about it for basically a week with the Ed Hervey window. There's been a lot to talk about. Now, I'm... there's obviously, whenever free agency opens, there's all the fan bases are like, well, we need to keep everybody and sign everybody else, and then realize that we have to lose some people, and that's not always easy. So I'll talk about that one first. We know Kwaku is headed to the nation's capital, and
it is true.
Kwaku has been a big supporter of the show. He's I consider him a friend, and so that was a tough one. And I'm hoping that he can do amazing things in Ottawa. And when I messaged him, I said, I wish you lots of hula hoops, except when you play us. And on the other hand, I mean, don't corrupt the kids. Come on, Kwaku. Now, a few other big names headed to Ottawa that we've already heard about. Holy Mazzoli going to Ottawa. Jalen Acklin headed that way. There's lots of rumors that Ellingson may be headed back that way. I think, Ottawa's making some moves here to improve that roster, much like we are. Some of the other ones, we know Duke re-signed in Saskatchewan. He did have bigger offers out there, but he did decide to stay in Saskatchewan. And so the bigger names that are kind of left on our list that we're not really sure of, Ellingson, Derek Moncrief, of course, Tremaine Washington, and Sean White. So now, from what they gave a great primer. The Elks did a great primer for free agency, and kind of set out what was going on. And Jones's history is kind of quiet in day 1 or 2, like get a couple of guys and then like get 5 or 6 over the first week. But I think with this opportunity to talk to teams, we're seeing a whole lot more of people being ready that tomorrow there's going to be a ton of signings. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's going through some of the names that are on the list that we can still have. The names you mentioned, of those, the last 3 names you talked about are ones that I would almost consider essential to the team. Right. I think with some of the rumors that we're going to be talking about next, Ellingson is sort of, the music has stopped and I don't think there's a chair left for him. Mm-hmm. But The guy we nominated as most outstanding defensive player from our team is so far unsigned. The guy that tied for league lead for interceptions is still unsigned. Yeah. And the greatest kicker in this team's history and top 3 all time in CFL history is unsigned. Now, it's certainly heavily rumored that he wants to go home. He has his off-season home in White Rock, just outside of Vancouver. So if that's the case, there's really nothing we can do to compete against that. But I don't understand how we haven't got Derek Moncrief and Tremaine Washington under contract.
Yeah. No, I would agree. Commish?
We need Washington squared ASAP. Both Washingtons ASAP. I mean, we already have one, but we need it squared. Not just from a Jedi, but because this team needs it.
Yeah.
Needs him desperately, yes. So that's my pick. Like, I love Sean, and like you said, Mike, if he wants to go home, then, all the power to him. But as far, I want to see more of Moncrief on the defensive side. I mean, we only got to see a little bit of him, so. Mm-hmm. But for Washington, he really stole the show for me, and I think for all of us last season. Let's face it, it's kind of easy to steal, though.
Fair.
But I truly believe that he has a really bright future, and I want that future to be with the green and gold. And like I said, we need a Washington squared, so let's have both.
Yeah, no, I would be okay with that. I'd be okay with that. Now, there's a lot of rumors, of course, of people who have signed in Edmonton, starting with one Ed Gainey, possibly coming over from Saskatchewan. Well, possibly. That one's pretty much a given. He as much as said it himself on Twitter that he's headed
leaving
this way.
Saskatchewan, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of those spots in the backfield, or I guess in the secondary, I should say. And then the other one that is a pretty big one today, saying that Kenny the King Lawler is accepted to become an Elk at a record-breaking price. Yeah, exactly, for a receiver. Now, to me, that's a double-edged sword. And I said this on Twitter in that my only issue with that is not Kenny Lawler, because I think he's a great receiver. I assume that he's a good dude. I don't, this is not a slam against him at all. But when you come in under a contract like that and you have to live up to it, I don't know that, like, Brian Kelly in his heyday, could he have made up for that contract? Like, it's huge, and it's going to put him under a massive microscope. And so then, to me, there's a worry that could have some dysfunction on the team. But hey, he's a great receiver. I'm not going to argue that. So, Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, like you, I think that anyone living up to a contract in a cap era, right, that's basically 6% of the entire contract tied up into one guy. The reason the quarterback has always been the highest paid player across the league, BC being exception right now, is
and
because
us to some degree,
yeah, they touch the ball every offensive snap. If you're a receiver, you are likely not going to be getting the ball every snap, and there are going to be some games where you're maybe going to have just a few targets because you're the focus of that. Now, that obviously has value because your other receivers, maybe you're getting open because they're on a one-on-one. Yes. But when you have a bad day, the fans are going to be like, we paid $300,000 for you. Like, what are you doing?
That's the first thing that's going to come out. Yeah.
Right. Now, to be the devil's advocate, Tim Capper sent me a link. Jim Mullen had posted that for some people that have a little bit of frost on the old chin salad here, would remember a guy from Montreal named Billy White Shoes Johnson. He was a huge name and a get for the Montreal Alouettes just going into the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s. He made $115,000 US in his final year with Houston in the NFL, the Houston Oilers, before he went to Montreal for considerably more. With the rate of inflation, he would have made the equivalent of 454,000 Canadian in Houston, and you can assume he made much more in his 2-year deal. So you're probably looking at 500,000 or 600,000, or the equivalent of, in 1979, 1980. And they were loading up David Overstreet. They had a lot of guys back in that sort of day. But that wasn't a cap era, right? This is, you are locking up a lot of your cap, which means you cannot put it on somebody else. And to be also fair, Montreal also folded a couple of years later, and they had to come back as the Concords. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's a tough one. I mean, market demands it. Somebody's willing to pay it. You take it. I'm not going to blame him for signing his name to it. Absolutely. Right. Like, I would. Oh, you want to pay me that much? Sure.
Is there any one of us here that wouldn't take a contract for $300,000 right now?
Yeah, no, not a chance. But yeah,
I don't want to speak for Kayla, but I certainly would.
Exactly.
After my heating bill, absolutely.
Hey, have you heard about Park Power? That's How's
I don't think they come out here, bruh.
Extra plug. Well, let's talk about some wants then for tomorrow, because we there is some guys out there. I know for me, I really kind of had my eye on Darnell Sankey early on. I thought he'd be an amazing middle linebacker. I really enjoyed watching him playing in Calgary, and I thought, he might fit a Jones system. Maybe he wants to come up this way. But I know that there's some rumors flying around anyway that, maybe Dion Lacey wants to come back and play for his coach that he played for in 2015. And
it has been rumored.
Can't say that I would be upset about that either. So, what are your thoughts on? Here, I'll lift off some of these other guys that I was thinking. Mark Cordy has been obviously rumored to be coming here to rejoin David Beard,
and much like Sean White coming home.
Yep, absolutely, not a problem there. There a couple other names that kind of jumped out at me. Hergy Mayala as a Canadian receiver, although we have kind of loaded up on our Canadian receivers, but there's always a possibility. Ted Laurent, we may be looking for that Canadian nose tackle. Does he come back to the green and gold? What about a guy like Toby Antigua that Chris Jones brought into the league? Is that a guy that then ends up here in his defense? So, thoughts on that, and what do you think about some of these other names that are out there? Kayla, let's start with you this time.
I just like poaching from Calgary. I find it quite enjoyable. And this is just life, yeah. I mean, and Hergy Mayala, that's such a fun name to say. I'm all, see where you got the Kingsley and the Loxley, and I'm like, Hergy Mayala. Like, perfect. But I mean, to see like Ted Laurent and Dion Lacey, like some old school vets, and I really don't know the fit that any of these guys would make in the Chris Jones system, and just with these new guys, and I don't know. None of them really actually stick out for me in terms of people coming on, other than stupid things like names and poaching. But it'll be really, really interesting to witness. I mean, all I'm really focusing on is getting Termaine Washington back here. So that's like my focus.
That's fair. Superfan, what'd you think of those? And is there any other names you had on your list?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we've heard a lot of the rumors about some of those players. Mac Henry from Saskatchewan is another non-import defensive tackle from Saskatchewan that we had heard possibly, and that would work with a Ted Laurent if you could rotate those two as that sort of nose tackle, and having having that sort of ability to rotate those two guys back and forth. Another kicker might be a good thing if we are losing Sean White. But one name that I sort of been looking at, a couple of names, Jaguar Davis, I don't believe is under contract yet. He's a free agent.
Yep. Rumored to be going to Toronto, but yes.
But yeah, you never know. And Josh Johnson, I'd like to see him come back. We still have, with someone like a Nafis Lyon at the corner position, with Ed Gainey possibly coming here, and Aaron Grimes having extended. At that point, you've got that defensive halfback position sort of locked up. Now, one of them could move to the Sam linebacker, the cover linebacker spot. But, if we're getting a Moncrief back or Tremaine, where are they going to go? So unless one of them can play that corner position, we're going to need somebody. And I really liked Josh Johnson who's here. So I think he'd be a good – but he's 5'11", 6 feet. So
yeah, exactly.
Maybe we'll see. Sorry he's not tall enough. But
where'd he go again?
He went to Winnipeg, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was Winnipeg for sure. Yeah, so lots of questions for free agency. Where does Andrew Harris end up? Where does Janarian Grant end up? I saw him on the list still. Like there's some guys there. Now, if you want to know more about it, you can join the Canadian Football Countdown live stream tomorrow. As they're going to have a full day of coverage with lots of people from the Canadian Football Podcast Network. So I would highly recommend joining in for that. And that is, I will be part of that as well, kind of in the mid-afternoon. So I'm excited for our Canadian Football Countdown friends to set this all up, and we're going to be talking all things free agency tomorrow.
What time?
Before
Does
we,
it start?
it's starting at, I believe it's starting at 10 Central Time and going through till 4 o'clock Central Time. So, so 9 to 3
day.
time. Yeah, so it'll be fun, and I'm
Very
excited
cool.
to get to hang out with some of the other podcasters and chat some more free agency stuff. So
strap on a diaper. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Exactly. Before we get to the end here, this episode is also brought to you by ATB. Looking for a way to give back? ATB Cares makes it easy for all Albertans to support the causes which they care about. Donate to your favorite charity through ATB Cares, and ATB will match 20% of every dollar donated to eligible Albertan charities. To learn more and donate, visit atbcares.com. Well, this was fun to get back and start chatting, guys. We did not too bad getting around the hour mark, I think. So,
there we are.
I delayed it by being a teenager who could not stop laughing, but that was fine. We got through it.
Up top, my brother.
Always fun to chat with you guys. Let's tell everybody where they can find everybody, starting with you, Superfan Mike.
You can find me at 56 Parkies, and then the history and horde segments you can find at the Edmonton Football History Twitter site, which is at EDMHISTOREE.
Wonderful. And Commissioner?
You can probably find me in a galaxy far, far away. Who knows where I'll be? I'm not sure. When CFL really starts to hit back off, you can find me at Duchess Lombardi on Twitter.
Perfect. And you can now find me at Freepalicious, because Freepalicious has made his return to Twitter. So join there, where I will likely talk some football, but I will also probably talk Lego and Star Wars and all the other nerd things that I do, because I needed another spot to outlet that wasn't specifically the podcast. Our Alberta Podcast Network shout out this week goes to the Let's Find Out podcast. It's hosted by Chris Chang Yen Phillips, and Let's Find Out dives into Edmonton's history and finding answers together.
Yes.
I know, that's a super fan show all the way around. You can find that and many other great podcasts at albertapodcastnetwork.com. Then, of course,
mid-season form.
Thanks. And we're also getting into, of course, it's that time to start following Pay It Forward with football as well.
Yes.
Because they are doing lots of amazing things. And so follow them as they get into the season. Of course, you can join the huddle for us too at the Turf District. I should probably say that. You can join that on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. Join us there for all of the chats. Now, if you're on YouTube Live right now, stick around for overtime, where we're going to talk more with the fans and get into some of the things that are in the chat. Otherwise, we will be back next Tuesday night. We're going to talk all of free agency, and we hope to have a guest join us. So for Commissioner K and Superfan Mike, I'm Andrew. Remember, you can't catch footballs with your face, and we will absolutely talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.